Hey there. I am here today with Melissa Mueller-Douglas, founder of My Retreat, a mindfulness app that's geared towards mindfulness and chocolate and taking the time that we need to be present and to enjoy life. And wow, do we need it, right? More than ever in 2021, more than ever. And I'm really excited that Melissa agreed to sit here with me this evening and tell us about her journey. Tell us about why it's so important that we take this time for ourselves. It's more important than you think. I know we all know that. This circle knows that. My audience knows that. Melissa's audience knows that. But sometimes it's really important to remember to be mindful and take a step back and evaluate where we are and introduce sometimes a new way to do that. So welcome. I'm really excited to dive in with you because here at Humanity Inc., we're all about the journey. We're all about understanding how we're all here to make an impact in the world in our own unique way. And what you're doing is powerful. What you're doing is needed. And we're so happy that you've taken up the charge to do this. And I'd love to hear from you on how you got started on that journey, just a little bit about My Retreat and what chocolate means to you. I don't know the backstory of chocolate. We've talked before, and we talked all about the app, and I want you to introduce that, but I want you to tell us about how you got started and why chocolate is so meaningful to you.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Melissa. It started back when I had graduated from my master's program. I got married, moved to a new city, started a new job as a licensed therapist, and had my first child. And I reached out to my colleagues, my friends, asking them what they were doing for self-care because I was recognizing that I was not focused on my own care at that time. And what they said to me was shocking, that either they were waiting for their kids to go off to college or that they weren't doing anything. Unfortunately, I didn't have to get new friends. I decided to focus on wellness. I was offering wellness groups as a therapist that I focused on. And then from there, I decided to start on my 30th birthday, just experience, a short experience. I rented out a yoga studio. Initially, I thought I would go big and we would get a bed and breakfast and have a 3-day weekend together. And ladies said, how am I going to get childcare, or how am I going to be, ready for the next day of work on Monday and get back on time? And there were so many logistics. So instead, I just said, give us minutes, right? So in an hour and a half, we gathered together. We set our intention for how we wanted to be during that time. We did the body scan, we did guided imagery, we did a form of mindfulness, and then gratitude journaling. And when I was told that it felt like so much longer than 90 minutes, they asked me when the next one was going to be and told me that I had to charge. I was intrigued. So from there, I would rent out various spaces, and I tweaked the model where it came down to a 60-minute experience. And I was recognizing still, though, that it was just as much for me as it was for the women who attended. People were bringing their friends, their relatives, their sisters, their moms to join us. And I had to be in that wellness mindset where I was able to facilitate and also receive from that experience. So a while back, and I'm going to have to reach out to the doctor and find out exactly what year it was, but a couple of years ago now, I went to a neurologist, and I had never been to one before, but I was not recalling things as sharply as I used to. I know that there's such a thing we call like pregnancy brain, right? But my kid's 4, so it had been enough time that I wasn't pregnant anymore,
Yeah.
and I just wasn't tracking things the way that I wanted to. And the neurologist sat down with me. She did, the exam that they do, and then said, now tell me more about what you do. And so I explained to her what organizations I'm a part of, who I am doing the retreats with. I explained that I'm a therapist, a mom, a daughter, a wife, a neighbor, a friend, all of these responsibilities. And she just, lowered her glasses and told me, Melissa, I'm going to write it on this piece of paper, this script. So it's an actual prescription. You need to take some things off your plate. You need to do less. And if in a month you still are experiencing this, come back, we'll go a different direction. But I believe, my theory is that you have too much on your plate. And so I did. I started, going to the float center. So I was adding, but I was adding things where I'm just, still and quiet and with myself. And it came back, right? I was able to remember things, recall things that I wanted to, and not feel like I was so forgetful. And so that was a great reminder that in order for us to be productive and creative and sexy and all the things that we want to be, that you truly need to slow down and schedule self-care so that you can achieve wellness.
And that's the thing, that you said it right there. And that's where women, even self-care, feel like it has to be scheduled. It's something on the list.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing on our list. And even that can feel overwhelming. It's a should. It's a should be doing. It's something in the back of our head that now we know is critical for us. And it's a, you should be doing this. So now the little voice in our head, on top of all the other things, right, is the thing on the back of the list is, you're not taking care of yourself. You should be, you should be, you should be. So many should be's, right? It, makes me think about the wellness industry and how crowded that space is now, especially for women, but for men too. And, there's a lot of messages out there. There's a lot of opportunity and products, and it's a really crowded space right now. When you're talking to people about their life and stress and their mental health and their ability to take care of themselves and that self-care, what are they telling you? What are they telling you they really need? And how is that coming across to you?
So I recently reached out to women who I know and women who I don't know, and just asked them, what is it the wellness industry is telling you that you think is absurd? And the number one response was, put yourself first. You should be putting
Because it
yourself.
has to go on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And we, then we roll our eyes like, thanks, Captain Obvious.
Right. And so hearing that, we were told, put on your oxygen mask first and then take care of the ones with you. And yet, whether it's instinct or whether it's like nurturing, or whether it's just this role modeling that we saw maybe someone else, our mother or our grandmother or someone in our community do, it just seems like an automatic habit to be caring for others first. And if you're not, then somehow.
What is a good mother? What is a good partner? What is a good friend?
Right.
We have these stories, right? These models that may or may not be very broken.
And even when you're doing things that are changing that narrative, it's not always accepted as quickly as we might hope. So
Or by ourselves, because those beliefs are deep.
they are deep. And so for my daughter, I was the sole contact person for her schooling uh, for the first 7 years. I was the first name on that contact list because I filled out the paperwork, and uh, if she was sick, I would get that first call, and so then I decided that I was going to switch the names, right? So I added my husband
Okay, I
first,
didn't even think of that.
and he started getting the first phone calls. However, however, when it came to like day-to-day
Oh,
expectations, if our daughter, forgot to bring something in her backpack, or wasn't, you know, doing her homework the way that they wanted it to be done, I was still getting that first email. And so I decided the first email that I received that my intervention, right, of flipping my husband's name to the top wasn't enough, that I needed to respond with, my husband is the main point of contact. If there is a true emergency, please contact us both. But if it is something about day-to-day routine needs, please only contact him. And I will say that it took about 2.5 months
wow.
for that cycle to become a habit or a pattern for the school. And I got a few, at the first parent teacher meeting, when I reinforced that and reiterated it, I got, oh, good for you. Usually moms are the ones that take on those responsibilities. And, maybe that's how it usually is. But if we want to see a change, we have to do
Right.
something different.
You have to be really proactive about it and make conscious shifts. We can't rely on, the context around us or the people around us to adopt that for us. Yeah,
Exactly.
I love that. Being proactive about how we show up and how the people around us
Right.
treat us.
And so, and holding ourselves accountable to standing our ground when we make those boundaries, because it could have been easy enough for me to say it's double the work now, because now I'm saying, no, you need to send this email to my husband instead of me just forwarding it to him. So it became more tedious at the beginning, but then it caught its stride and they got used to it, and they weren't getting the response that they were looking for from me. And so instead, they just, automatically were reverting those questions, comments, concerns to him, and it worked out pretty nicely.
I love that.
So that was an example of something that I believe our consumers of the My Retreat chocolate mindfulness experience, that they need and want, is either to have permission or to give themselves permission to do less so that they can give more of themselves,
Yeah,
in the areas that mean most, including themselves, right? Pour back into themselves. I wanted to share something right before we hopped onto this call. So I took my dog for a walk, and it was like a mosquito zombie apocalypse.
it's real incredible.
I do not know what happened, but there were about 70 mosquitoes swarming around my head, and I got bit twice.
No,
And so I thought, oh, great, I'm coming to have this video chat, and I'm going to have these, 2 mounds on my face. And then I paused for a moment and thought about it. And so my friend Mona from Mona Moon Natural, she makes this incredible DEET-free natural bug repellent called Bug Away Spray.
oh, cool.
And so I just recently got this from her last week. I wanted to, of course, support her business, but when I got it, it comes in this gorgeous, right, lavender purple
Oh, nice.
bottle. The scent is phenomenal, and of course, it's functional. So win-win all around. But what I realized is that it's been a whole week. I've never used it. I go out every night to walk the dog, and I've probably been bit about half of the time that I've gone out there. So what that tells me is that even if, you know, the aesthetic is right, the scent is spot on,
and you know it works.
And we know it works. If proactively we're not doing it for prevention, that type of self-care, that we just are sitting here in the aftermath thinking, why didn't I do this? I should have put it on, right? But if each night that I go out, I start by putting it on, whether or not there are mosquitoes out there, it's like the shield of self-care and this protection that I'm doing for myself, that then becomes a habit. And that's what I truly believe we as professionals, as women, that we need to be doing. Most of us are on board with, you know, getting our teeth cleaned, however often it's supposed to be done, or, you know, any sort of prevention, right? Deodorant. I mean, there are certain things that we're just down with, but there are other types of protections of our time, protections of our emotional bank, like how much we can actually give of ourselves before we're on E, we're empty, that I know once we use them consistently and have it become a habit, that when we need it, it's already there.
Yep. That's a fabulous analogy. I love that. And I'd love to hear more about the bug spray, and maybe you can share it with me and I'll share it in the notes. But it's so true. It's so true. And usually it's going to the neurologist, you know, just like you said, or it's meltdown and it's not being able to go back into work or be present with our kids. And then it compounds, right? Or present with our spouse, or, you know, or it just builds up into an anxiety and you reach this point where you can't function at all, you know, at a certain level, or just not to the caliber that you want to be there for yourself and for the people in your life. And it's the last thing that we want. But you're right. We're not putting the bug spray on every night before we go out for a walk. And we could be, and it would be really easy to do. Can you tell us a little bit more about the app and your retreats and how you designed this to accommodate how we are feeling about that checklist and why we're not doing it on a regular basis? And chocolate and why chocolate? I'm like, I really love that piece of it, right? Because I feel like it meets right there.
Yes. When women come to the retreat, and when I do it for organizations and businesses, it's all genders. Specifically for our monthly women's retreat, it happens on the first Saturday of every month. And when they're coming, they're saying, you know, I need this, kind of like what you talked about. It needs to be to the point where it's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. If I don't do this for myself now, I don't know what's going to happen. So that's oftentimes when people are coming, and what they're saying is that either they don't know how, they've forgotten how, or they just need that group.
We froze.
What's our other have this space.
We froze for a second.
Look at that.
Back up just a little bit.
Sure. So I love when the internet freezes. It doesn't happen often, but it's just like, even though it's supposed to be running all the time, right? It's taking its own little pause.
In the evening, I found actually it's evening here in Rochester, in case you're listening from all over, but evening tends to be tougher for me on whatever network I'm on. It just, I don't know why.
Okay.
Sorry.
We're all good. So when we're getting together, women are saying that they need it, that this is something that's been a long time coming. They've been wanting to come to the retreat. It just hasn't fit in their schedule, right? They just haven't taken the time to put themselves first. And generally they're kicking everyone out of the house. So we know some people choose to take their mini break by closing the bathroom door, right? And just waiting.
Crying in the
Right.
car,
Or
whatever.
hanging out in the car. Exactly. Exactly. And so with the retreat, we encourage people to say, have everybody leave, go for a walk, go to the playground, go wherever they want to go. And you just have your home and just be free for those 90 minutes. And during the retreat, sometimes when I'm doing, let's say, the guided imagery practice, sometimes ladies are actually falling asleep, and it's not a long segment, but because there's no noise around them, they're just focused on their breath and being in the moment, that they realize what their body needs is just to take a break. And they wake up, right, a little bit later, but I've had multiple people say that was so relaxing, I just dozed off for a moment. So during the retreat, uh,
And I've listened
what,
to you. You have an incredibly relaxing voice,
thank you.
like crazy relaxing voice. So I can see.
Appreciate that. So during the retreat, we are hearing women say, oh, this would be so great. I would love to do gratitude journaling. It's so easy. I just use a word. And let's say it's Melissa, since we have a fabulous name, right? So you use the letter M, and you're thinking about a person, place, or thing that you're currently grateful for. So I'm grateful for mindfulness. And then E is for entertainment, right? And you go through, and it can be very brief, or you can have it go longer, where some people choose to write multiple words that start with the letter M and continue on for as far as they can go. So what I find, though, is that even before we do what your takeaway was, what are you going to implement after this session together, that there's still this internal dialogue, this narrative that they're expressing, where this now needs to be something that they do. And I ask everyone to hold that thought and just consider that you just got it done. So you're adding it to your got done list. And it's this mindset shift of, when you practice something, that it's somehow not official, like you're not actually caring for yourself, you're not doing it because you haven't mastered it, or you haven't done it 50 times.
Right.
But in reality, you've done it once. You can celebrate that. You can own it. And should you choose to do it again that same day, great. But if you don't do it again for a week until you realize, oh my goodness, I need this again, that's okay too. As long as you're recognizing in the moment that right then and there you did something for yourself. And those small increments add up to something so great. Just like when you go to the coffee shop and you're spending $5, that $5 adds up across the whole span of the year to a lot of money if you're doing it every day, right? So 5 minutes a day for self-care practice or less adds up across the span of the year to be really beneficial.
So you've got the pause, and you check on the pause, and the pause, as they work through these retreats, they find that it's easy and feels good to check that off the list, right? And it isn't taking up a whole weekend of their time. They don't need to go to Sedona to do this for themselves. It doesn't need to be this big thing on a to-do list. It can be pleasurable.
Right.
So you were telling me about pause and savor, right? So let's get to the chocolate.
Right. So I shared with you at the first ever retreat back in 2017 that we did a mindful eating experience. And at that time, I was using Origin's mint gumballs. So I was going to our Eastview Mall here in Victor, and 10 ladies were in attendance. So I put in my 10 quarters and put them in a gorgeous jar and brought them to the retreat. And we all enjoyed them. They have this burst of flavor initially, and then slowly it gets down to this mild mint, sweet mint. And I love that. And it's not necessarily sustainable, where if I'm doing it virtually, I can't give you a gumball, right? But there's always chocolate somewhere, whether it's around the corner at the store or right in your cabinet. And I've had participants, when I do the chocolate mindfulness experience for colleges, their staff, or supervisors at businesses, where they'll say, especially when they were working remotely, right? During COVID, they'll say, you know what, I didn't bring any chocolate. I forgot. Give me just 1 second. And they'll run to their kitchen and they'll come back and be like, look what I found. I hid this from my children, or I forgot about this last cookie at the back of the cabinet, but I bought it,
Do we
just
all
a few
hide
days
food?
ago.
Is this
It's a pattern.
mothers? I think.
If you want to have it, it has to be out of sight, but then you lose sight of it, right?
That's the second bonus.
Right.
You forget about it too. I didn't eat it. It's fine.
So the chocolate piece came about because we eat chocolate when we're celebrating, right? At birthday parties, at uh, events, right? They have the chocolate fountain. We eat chocolate when we are feeling stressed sometimes, to try to feel better on a bad day. We eat chocolate when we're at the movie theaters or watching a movie and then blame someone next to us that they ate the whole bag, and then realize we're the ones who were mindlessly eating said chocolate, right? So the idea was to couple something with a habit that we already know and enjoy with a new behavior of mindfulness. And so when you're taking that piece of chocolate, you're listening to the sound of the wrapper as you unwrap it. You're holding it in your hand to notice its weight. You're looking at the textures, the areas of dullness and shine. You're smelling the scents, which oftentimes brings people in the retreat to a time where they're describing memories of an Easter basket, or they're describing a camping trip and being with making s'mores and being with family or loved ones. And so there are a lot of happy experiences that involve chocolate already, that people's mind sometimes transports to, which is an added bonus. But when they're coming back to that piece of chocolate in front of them, right, you're taking in 3 deep breaths, focusing on your breathing, and then you're taking that first bite. And as you roll the chocolate across your taste buds, you recognize that the flavor is more pronounced at certain parts of your tongue. And who knew, right? And even if you did know, you likely have forgotten, because when you're eating your lunch at work, or your breakfast in the morning while you're reading or doing whatever it is that you're doing, putting on shoes, I don't know, right? You're not taking that pause to savor the flavor. And so people tell us, wow, I didn't realize that the back of my tongue registers the flavor more profoundly than the front, or vice versa. And they're just playing with their food. Nobody else knows that they're doing it, but they're really experiencing the textures and even that lingering flavor and scent, and then continuing with as much or as little as they like. And that's the reason why I chose the chocolate, because you can have it right there on your desk at work. Nobody knows that it's your self-care practice, but you can take one piece and have it right there when you need it. You can have it in your purse. You can have it in your briefcase, wherever you need it.
It's really a brilliant way to practice mindfulness in a way that causes you joy already. Right? It already was something that you're intrinsically motivated to do because it tastes amazing, and it causes a change in our chemistry. It already caused a change in our chemistry. And when you add that element of mindfulness to enjoying that chocolate in a much more detailed, when you're savoring it in that way, I really love that it makes it a natural way to practice that mindfulness. It's a really, really smart way of combining, like you said, pause and savor. And it brings you to that place. It does the thing that we really need, and it's very enjoyable, right? Instead of feeling like it's something on the checklist, because we don't think of that piece of chocolate as something on our checklist at all.
Not at
We're
all.
not thinking, oh, I need to eat that piece of chocolate too today. Like, I haven't done that yet. I really need to get to that piece of chocolate. Like, no, that never happens, right? It's not something on our checklist. And so it moves it over from one side of the chart to the other, right? Is something that we look forward to doing instead of being on our checklist from that eye roll response of you should care for yourself first. Make time for yourself. That's why we roll our eyes, because it's on the checklist side of our life. You moved it over to the other side.
Where it belongs.
Where it belongs. Because it should feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And it does feel good. Just like, exercise is one of those things for me, right? People tell me it feels good. And I'm like, okay, sure, it feels good to you. I don't know, right? And I'm like, I know I should exercise. I want to exercise. I know I should, but it's in the, but this mindfulness is something you can do right away that doesn't take 3 months or 6 months or a year to start to feel pleasurable and to do its job. It does it from moment one.
Indeed. And you can incorporate it into any of your meals or any of your break times. On the weekends, we do chocolate pancake mindfulness. So it can be incorporated into truly any part of your day.
Yeah, I love that. So how can people learn about my retreat? Do you have something coming up that you'd really love for everyone to know about? How can they get in touch with you? I mean, I'll have all this information in the notes, so you don't have to, worry about details, but how can people start to do this with you right now?
National Mindfulness Day is on September 12th. And this
Okay.
year we have a phenomenal lineup of panelists who will be presenting. They are incredible women who I have known for a number of years now, and they just stood out to me because of what they do. So one woman owns a dessert bar, and she'll be spearheading the chocolate mindfulness experience, and another woman
You're going to be going
is
through that mindfulness practice right there.
exactly right there. And it will be streaming, so it'll be live and virtual so that anyone anywhere can enjoy the experience with us. We have another panelist who is a conflict resolution guru, and she makes it accessible, and just she's incredible at what she does. And so she will be spearheading another aspect of the event, and going through a guided imagery practice around that part of you that is capable at resolving the conflicts that we experience day in and day out
Which
at
causes a lot of the
various
stress
levels.
that lands us needing to consume large amounts of chocolate.
There it is. There it is.
Oh. We froze again.
And there are more. When city do celebrate National Mindfulness Day and get to connect with a great group of ladies.
That's amazing. Well, I'm really looking forward to being there. I will be there. And I'm excited
Excellent.
to share that with everybody. Melissa will give me a link and we'll have all the details so that we can get that over to you. Also a link to the app, because I highly recommend looking into that. I'm not sure. I know that it's up, and you can send me the details on the best way for people to learn about that, and also upcoming retreats that you have.
Yes.
Yeah, other retreats. So you've got
Will do.
September 12th and the My Retreat app, and Melissa runs live retreats through the app as well, right?
Right. So the Chocolate Mindfulness app is available on the Apple App Store. So you can use it on your iPhone or on an iPad. And And then, yes, we have the live experiences, which are offered monthly for women. And then additionally, every month, I am facilitating customized retreats for organizations. And that's up to 100 participants in your
Oh, that's amazing.
organization.
So if you're with an organization and you want to bring in something that's completely different and really enjoyable and probably something that will connect people in a way that you've never really connected before, with one of, the many ways you can run activities at work. This is something completely different and would be amazing to bring on.
That's
Yeah,
what we hear.
I love that. Thank you so much. This has been really, really nice, and I'm looking forward to being more mindful in this way. And it's really fun to think of doing this in a way that I already find very enjoyable, right? So that pairing of that together, and you're amazing, and I love the app, and I'm thrilled that I got an opportunity to sit down with you, um, and excited to see this journey continue.
Yes,
Thank
and I
you.
want to send gratitude not only for you being a fabulous host. Uh, in addition, when we did sit down in person and talked, you reminded me about the Float Center. It's something, a place that I've been to,
Body Mind
adore.
Float Center in Rochester, New York.
Yes. And sometimes we just have to have that reminder, right? To hear someone say, you know what works well for me,
Mhm.
it's enough to say, yes, that has worked well for me in the past, and I need to go.
Yeah, we froze again.
So thank you.
Yeah, I know. We just had a little froze,
So
had a little freezing again.
yes,
Oh,
another reminder to just
uh,
to go with the flow, but also to pause. And so I was simply saying thank you for sharing that as a reminder. I
oh,
appreciate you.
it's a reminder for me too when it comes up, you know? And they're just different ways, and that's something that does end up being on a to-do list because it's a big, chunk of time. And, we have to take a multifaceted view of how we take care of ourselves and never feel like we have to apologize for it because it's important.
Indeed.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. And have a wonderful night. This was really, really wonderful. Thank you.
Take good care.
Thank you. You too. Good night.
Good
Bye,
night.
everyone.